How to connect with an audience in a speech. By the end of this video, you'll have 6 new tools as to how you can connect with an audience really quickly. You're going to love it. I'm Jason Hewlett, keynote speaker, Hall of Fame speaker, and award-winning entertainer. I'm going to tell you about why breaking my leg was one of the best ways to connect with an audience I've ever seen. And I'm going to reveal that the turning point in a lot of my speeches is when I actually make fun of and talk about the challenge of speaking to accountants. And then I'll also reveal when music, dancing, and that type of engagement can really help to connect with an audience. So here we go. Number 1, be authentic and vulnerable. So last year, I broke my leg, and I was on stage a couple of weeks later in a huge leg brace. You see, my leg couldn't bend for about 2 months. It was a really weird situation. I had to wear a brace over the top of my pants, and it looked so weird. But it connected me to the audience in a way I'd never experienced before, because they felt empathy or sympathy, depending on what they'd been through in life, right when I was introduced to stage. In fact, I'd come out on stage with crutches. And then I would say, hey, I just have to be honest with you. I broke my leg. I'm sorry, this is how it looks. Has anybody else here ever had an injury? And everybody's hands went up. So that was the quickest way I've ever found to connect with an audience, was breaking my leg. I'm not going to tell you to do that, but it's about being authentic and vulnerable. I've also seen a speaker named Immaculée, and she stood up on stage and she shared a very challenging thing she went through with the genocide that she lived through in Rwanda. It was like one of those showstopper speeches where it's like nobody can even breathe. They're listening so intently. All she did was stand there and share her vulnerability, her power, her authenticity. And I've never seen anyone connect with an audience that fast. Number 2 is to know the audience and what they do for a living. Know the theme. Know the reason they're there. I'll admit, I once did an event where I was also the booker, the contract maker, the invoice guy. I did all of those things because I didn't have anyone helping me at the time. And so I put the contract together based upon what was written at the bottom of the guy's email who booked me. It said WOO, Woo, under his name. And I went, oh, that's the name of the company. So I put that on every contract and on every invoice. And then I went to the gig and I stood up on stage. I said, hey, everybody of Woo, it's great to be here. And everyone was like, what? An audible gasp from the audience. And I said, what's the problem? They said, that's not our name. It was not the name of the company. It was actually the nickname of the guy who booked me. WOO, Wise Old Owl. And so that guy literally thought I was joking on every contract, every invoice, and we never cleared it up. I still don't remember the name of that company to this day. The reason I tell you that story is because I was an idiot, not checking what their name was or knowing who they were before I spoke to them. Why would I admit that to you? Because then there's the flip side. Recently, I did an event for a company called Bomb Party. Yes, that's a true name of a true company. They're based in Alabama. And I made a joke about this company by saying, hey, you know, I only made the joke halfway through the speech, okay? But I made the joke and said, when I heard the name Bomb Party, I had to look it up. And then I looked it up and saw you're in Alabama. I thought this would be a way different audience here. It was actually an audience of women who do a reveal of jewelry by dropping a fizzing little capsule in water and it reveals the jewelry. It's a multi-level marketing company and they call it a bomb party. And I said, your name is very tricky. And they all laughed about it because they knew it. I said, you can't even say your name at the airport. They all laughed because they knew it. I said, I couldn't get through TSA because I said I'm going to a bomb party. And so we have to laugh about a name sometimes, but only after everyone's comfortable with us. And so always know the audience, what they do for a living, what their name is. That may sound so obvious, but that makes a huge difference. Number 3 is to make them laugh. Now, If everybody could make everybody laugh, this would be such a cool thing, but a lot of people aren't capable of it. And so practicing making people laugh is just telling an authentic story or sharing something that happened with you. And then, of course, there was a guy that took the stage that was one of the greatest things I've ever seen in how to connect with an audience. I've talked about him in a previous video. His name is Dan Clark. He's the first motivational speaker I ever saw speak. And so I hope you'll subscribe to this channel so that you can watch some of the other videos where I've shared about Dan. But here's what happened with me and Dan. We went on a tour of Afghanistan where we got to perform for the US military in the middle of a war. So there's all these military guys in the audience. And Dan gets introduced by the sergeant, who was a female, and it was very interesting the way that she introduced him. It was very condescending. It was the way that she led these people. And Dan Clark, after she introduced him, she said, "I guess he's in the Hall of Fame of speaking, whatever that is." And she just kind of flippant about his great bio. "Yeah, I guess he's ridden camels in the Sahara and he's flown in an F-16 like everybody hasn't around here." You know, it was awful. And he stood up there and he was very careful, but he's very smart. He said, "Well, that was the worst introduction I've ever gotten in my life." And the whole crowd lost their minds, laughing hysterically, because they knew that's how she introduces people and that it's not good. Dan took a risk. If you can take that kind of risk, go for it. I'd tread lightly. But I want you to know that one of the quickest ways to connect with an audience is to make them laugh. So number 4 is a really fun one. You might not think about this in terms of public speaking and being on stage as a speaker, but here's the thing. You can use music, dancing, engagement, fist bumps. Have the people stand up, do something fun. One of my favorite guys that speaks is a man named Rob Ferre, F-E-R-R-E. Rob Ferre is the first guy on the dance floor. Every time he comes on stage, he's doing music, he's getting people engaged, he's getting them up on their feet. I love the way that he does this. He makes people dance, he has them doing game shows. That's part of his speech. It's very unique. Now, when does this really come into play? Recently, I had an opportunity to speak in Macau. Macau is the Las Vegas of China. Yeah, so I had to fly all the way from where I live in the United States all the way over to Hong Kong and then take the longest bridge in the world, an hour-and-a-half drive to Macau. I got to Macau and I only had 30 minutes to speak. It took me 30 hours to fly there. 30-minute speech with an audience that doesn't speak English as their first language, 4,000 or so people. What do you think I did? I made them stand up. They had been sitting for 4 hours. I was the first speaker that told them to stand. They liked me right away. Quick connection. I said, "Hey, let's play some music." I turned on the music and I said, "High five each other." And I showed them how. And they all ran around and high fived each other. They needed a break. Who do you think they liked as their speaker? It went well. The surveys came back saying that they had the most fun at my session of anybody. And they learned the most too because I got them up after sitting for 4 hours. High-fiving, music, dancing. I had them dancing in the halls and the aisles. They were laughing. They were having a great time. When we engage that way with any audience, whether they speak our language or not, utilizing music, dance, engagement, high fives, fist bumps, you name it, chicken dance if you have to, do what you have to do, and they will love you forever. One of my favorite ways to connect with an audience is number 5. I like to start with the story of some place that I failed. So whenever you can share a story that makes them relate to you, you see, you're already on stage. So they're thinking, "Oh, this person has nothing in common with me." Well, what if you share a time when you failed at something and can connect with them on a level of, "I failed, we all have failed," and then how we can all build each other up. So I like to share my story of performing in Legends in Concert in Las Vegas. You see, the first time I tried out there, I tried out as an Elton John impersonator. And I share this story as my opening. And so I talk about how I did my best, I sang and I did everything, and they did not hire me. I was pretty defeated. But then I figured out a few different things that I could do to improve. I identified, clarified, and magnified what needed to take place as a performer in order to get this job as a Elton John impersonator, which is a really big promise that you would make to an audience that they're going to see Elton John in concert, and it's actually you. And so I tell that story, I share my failure, they all go, "Aw," and then I say, "This is how I improved. It took me a year of work to get to where I was able to get that job." Now they're all connected with me because we started at a place where I failed. They like me, and we connect much better that way. So connect by sharing a story or in some way that you've failed so that you can connect quicker with your audience. So number 6 is that everyone learns differently. Yeah, believe it or not, the person you work with probably has a different brain than you, a different style. You go in for the hug and they're like, so I make that joke. And this is actually a turning point in every speech. Well, not every speech, but most speeches that I give, and I promised you at the beginning of this video that I would share this. This is what happens when I perform for accountants. You see, my brain is different than the accountant brain, and so I make fun of the experience of trying to perform for accountants, trying to speak to them and make them laugh. And so I just say outright, hey, you guys are different than me. We all have gifts and talents that make us unique. You see, when I perform for accountants, accountants laugh generally inside their body. That's hard for me to perform for them. I need someone to give me some love back. And then I do a musical impression of Simon and Garfunkel, and it's called Sound of Silence. I just sing the song Sound of Silence, and they laugh their heads off. And here's the thing. This is a turning point for a lot of people in my audience who are listening to me share stories, do things that are a little bit funny and aren't really connecting. Now I've leaned into accountants, IT guys, engineers, people that have a different brain than me, but now I'm hitting right brain, I'm hitting left brain, everybody's happy, and then we can proceed with the presentation. It's a great way to connect. It would be so awesome if you'll put in the comments, what are some of the best ways you've seen speakers connect with an audience? I would love to know. And while you're doing that, please hit subscribe. It would be awesome to be able to have this conversation continue because I make other videos, obviously, about being on stage, perfecting our performance, and connecting with audiences. Thanks for joining me. I'm excited to see what you're going to write. I'm Jason Hewlett.